Police thought they were stopping just another old man at a rainy checkpoint. But what was inside his satchel and who came to collect it shocked the entire station. This isn't just a story about a routine stop. It's about a Cold War secret, a burden carried for decades, and the quiet hero no one saw coming. Before we begin, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like the video. In the small town of Ridgewood, rain fell steadily as evening descended. The weather was typical for this time of year, so the locals took little notice. Ridgewood was a quiet place where life moved slowly. People went about their business with familiar routines. The police set up a traffic checkpoint on the highway leading out of town. It was a regular task for them, something they did to ensure safety and maintain order. They expected a few minor infractions, the usual speeders or drivers who forgot to signal. Walt Hargrove lived on the outskirts of Ridgewood. He was 82 years old and known to everyone in town as Old Walt. Walt was a veteran and a man of few words. He preferred the company of his garden and the books he read on his porch. His life was simple and quiet. He seldom left his home, and when he did, it was usually during the day. But on this rainy evening, Walt did something unusual. He got into his old Ford pickup truck and drove down the highway. It was rare for him to drive at night. Beside him on the passenger seat was a worn leather satchel. It was old and looked like it had seen many years. The contents were hidden, and Walt kept a steady eye on the road. His grip on the steering wheel was firm and his face showed focus. He was heading somewhere with purpose. As Walt approached the checkpoint, the rain continued to fall, making the road slick and shiny. Officer Bailey, a young officer new to the force, was on duty. He was eager to do his job well and noticed the truck as it approached. Walt's truck was old but well-maintained, a testament to his careful nature. Officer Bailey waved him to the side, signaling for him to stop. Walt complied, pulling over without hesitation. Officer Bailey approached the truck, his boots splashing lightly in the puddles forming on the road. He greeted Walt with a nod and asked for his license and registration. Walt handed them over without a word, his eyes calm but watchful. Officer Bailey noticed the leather satchel on the seat. It seemed out of place, a curious object in an otherwise ordinary vehicle. "What's in the satchel?" Officer Bailey inquired, trying to keep his tone light. He didn't expect any trouble, just routine questions. Walt paused before answering. His voice was steady as he replied that the satchel was not for them. It had to be delivered to a naval base. His words were clear but offered no further explanation. Officer Bailey was taken aback by the answer. It was unusual, and the young officer felt a hint of unease. The rain drummed on the truck's roof, filling the silence that followed. Officer Bailey asked Walt to step out of the vehicle. Walt did so without protest, moving slowly but with dignity. There was no sign of fear or aggression, just a calm acceptance of the situation. Yet, his reluctance to open the satchel raised questions. Protocol required Officer Bailey to act cautiously. He decided to detain Walt for further questioning, hoping to clear up the matter. Walt was handcuffed gently. There was no struggle, no resistance. He seemed to understand the necessity of the officer's actions. Officer Bailey called for backup, explaining the situation to his colleagues. They arrived quickly, and together they searched Walt's truck. The satchel was taken as potential evidence. Inside, the officers found documents and a veteran ID. It was puzzling. Nothing suggested danger, but the mystery deepened. The rain continued its steady fall, creating a somber backdrop to the scene. The officers radioed in their actions, mentioning Walt's veteran status. The dispatcher had no immediate information to provide, leaving the officers in a state of confusion. They were unsure of what they had stumbled upon. It was not an ordinary stop, and the implications were unclear. The officers led Walt to a patrol car. He moved with a steady step, his expression unchanged. He sat in the back of the car, looking out at the rain-soaked night. The officers, though puzzled, treated him with respect. There was something about Walt's calm demeanor that commanded it. As they drove to the station, Officer Bailey couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Walt than met the eye. The veteran's calm acceptance of the situation was unusual, especially for someone being detained. It was as if Walt had anticipated this moment, as if he knew it was part of a larger plan. The journey to the station was short, and upon arrival, Walt was processed efficiently. Fingerprints were taken and his photograph captured for the record. The officers handled the situation with professionalism, aware that they were dealing with an elderly veteran. The satchel was placed in the evidence room, its secrets temporarily locked away. Walt was placed in a holding cell, the door closing with a soft click. He sat on the bench, his hands resting on his knees. His gaze was steady, focused on some distant point. He seemed at peace, despite the circumstances. The officers watched him through the bars, unsure of what to make of the quiet man. Meanwhile, Officer Bailey returned to his desk, still thinking about the satchel and Walt's cryptic words. He decided to enter Walt's ID into the station's computer system, hoping for more information. As he typed, an unexpected alert flashed on the screen. It appeared briefly, a message that was there one moment and gone the next. Confused, Officer Bailey tried to retrieve it, but the system offered no clues. He reported the incident to Sergeant Lawson, the most experienced officer at the station. The sergeant listened carefully, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. He knew that they had to proceed with caution. The alert suggested something out of the ordinary, and they needed to be prepared. Sergeant Lawson instructed the team to keep the matter confidential. They were to treat Walt with respect and await further instructions. The atmosphere in the station shifted, a quiet tension replacing the usual routine. The officers felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. Walt remained in his cell, aware of the activity around him. He seemed to know that the situation was beyond the officers' control. His calm presence was almost reassuring, a beacon of steadiness amidst the uncertainty. As the night wore on, the rain continued to fall, a steady rhythm against the windows of the station. The officers waited, their thoughts filled with questions. Who was Walt Hargrove really? What was in the satchel? And what would happen next? The answers remained elusive, hidden for now like the contents of the worn leather satchel. At the Ridgewood police station, the rain continued to tap against the windows. The officers worked quietly, processing the events of the evening. Walt Hargrove, the elderly veteran, sat in a holding cell. He seemed unaffected by his surroundings, maintaining a sense of calm. The officers had searched the leather satchel taken from Walt's truck. Inside, they found documents and an old naval insignia. The documents were yellowed with age, their purpose not immediately clear. There were no weapons, no illegal items. Just paper and the insignia, which bore a design unfamiliar to the officers. The mystery deepened, leaving them puzzled. Sergeant Lawson, aware of the importance of the situation, gathered his team. They needed to understand what the alert on the computer system meant. Officer Bailey, still troubled by the unexplained message, showed the sergeant the screen. After several attempts, they retrieved a secure message. It instructed them to hold the detainee and wait for further instructions. The sergeant recognized the gravity of the instructions. They had to handle the matter discreetly without drawing attention. He ordered the station to go on high alert, ensuring that every officer understood the seriousness of the situation. They were to avoid discussing the matter with anyone outside the station. The atmosphere shifted, a quiet tension settling over the room. Walt remained in his cell, his demeanor unchanged. He was aware of the activity around him, the officers moving with purpose. Yet he seemed unperturbed, as if he had expected this turn of events. His calm presence was a mystery, a puzzle the officers could not solve. In the conference room, Sergeant Lawson briefed his team. They reviewed the contents of the satchel again, hoping to find clues. The documents were old, filled with technical jargon and codes. None of the officers could decipher their meaning. The naval insignia, though unfamiliar, suggested military connections. But without context, the pieces didn't fit together. As the hours passed, the officers speculated about Walt's identity. Some thought he might be involved in something important, perhaps even government-related. Others wondered if his presence at the checkpoint was part of a larger plan. The satchel, with its cryptic contents, fueled their imaginations. Officer Bailey, despite his inexperience, felt a growing respect for Walt. The veteran's calm acceptance of the situation was unlike anything he had seen. It was as if Walt was playing a role in a story only he understood. Bailey couldn't shake the feeling that Walt was someone significant, someone who had carried a burden for many years. Meanwhile, Walt sat quietly in his cell, his thoughts his own. He knew the officers were trying to piece together the puzzle, but he also knew they lacked the necessary information. His mission was clear, and he trusted that the right people would soon arrive. Back in the main office, the officers monitored the station's communication channels. They awaited further instructions, their anticipation growing. The rain continued its steady fall, a constant backdrop to the unfolding drama. The night stretched on, each passing minute marked by the soft ticking of the station's clock. Sergeant Lawson, mindful of his team's morale, reminded them to remain focused. They had a duty to perform, and they needed to be ready for whatever came next. He checked on Walt periodically, ensuring the veteran was comfortable and treated with respect. Walt's calm demeanor seemed to reassure the officers even as they grappled with the unknown. The veteran's presence, though mysterious, brought a sense of gravity to the station. He was a man who had lived a full life, who had served his country with honor. The officers, despite their confusion, felt a growing respect for him. As the night wore on, the officers continued their vigil. They were aware that something significant was happening, something beyond their usual duties. The secure message had changed everything, turning a routine night into a matter of importance. In the holding cell, Walt reflected on the past. He thought of his years in the Navy, the missions that had shaped his life. The satchel was a link to those days, a reminder of promises made and kept. He had carried its contents for so long, waiting for the right moment to pass them on. The officers, though unaware of Walt's thoughts, sensed the weight of his history. They spoke quietly among themselves, sharing their theories and speculations. Each officer was drawn into the mystery, their curiosity piqued by the enigmatic veteran. As the hours slipped by, the rain began to lighten, its rhythm softening against the windows. The officers remained vigilant, their attention focused on the task at hand. They knew they were part of something larger, a story unfolding in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. Sergeant Lawson, reviewing the situation, considered their options. They needed to be prepared for the arrival of higher authorities, for the next step in the unfolding mystery. He reminded his team to remain professional, to uphold their duty with integrity. The night in Ridgewood was quiet, the town unaware of the drama playing out at the station. The officers, though tired, stayed alert. They were ready to act, to assist in whatever way was needed. Walt, sitting in his cell, felt a sense of peace. He had carried the burden of the satchel for many years, and now his mission was nearly complete. He trusted that the right people would come, that the secrets he guarded would be handled with care. The officers, though still in the dark, sensed the significance of the moment. They were part of a story that stretched beyond their understanding, a story that connected past and present. And as they waited, the rain continued to fall softly, a gentle reminder of the world outside, where life went on as usual. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets of Ridgewood glistening under the streetlights. Inside the police station, the officers remained on high alert. The quiet tension filled the room, each officer aware that something significant was about to happen. It was around midnight when the sound of approaching vehicles broke the silence. The officers looked up, their attention drawn to the convoy of unmarked cars pulling into the station's lot. The vehicles moved with precision, their presence commanding attention and respect. The officers exchanged glances, understanding that these were not ordinary visitors. From the lead vehicle, a team of Navy SEALs emerged, their movements quick and efficient. At the front was Commander Mason, a tall man with a commanding presence. He entered the station with purpose, his team following closely behind. The officers watched in awe, the authority of the SEALs evident in every step. Commander Mason introduced himself, his voice calm and steady. He requested to speak with Walt immediately, wasting no time with formalities. The officers, including Sergeant Lawson and Officer Bailey, led him to the holding cell. Walt looked up as the SEALs approached, a faint smile crossing his face. There was a quiet recognition between him and Commander Mason, an understanding that needed no words. The commander greeted Walt with respect, acknowledging the veteran's role in the unfolding events. Sergeant Lawson and Officer Bailey were invited to a briefing in the conference room. Commander Mason explained the situation, his words clear and direct. Walt Hargrove, they learned, had been part of a covert naval operation during the Cold War. The documents in the satchel were connected to a mission shrouded in secrecy, one that had never been officially acknowledged. The officers listened intently, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit together. The satchel's contents were sensitive materials entrusted to Walt by a trusted superior. His task was to keep them safe until he was contacted by the appropriate authorities. This night, this checkpoint was part of a planned handover. Commander Mason thanked the officers for their professionalism. He assured them that Walt was under the protection of the Navy and his detainment had been a misunderstanding. The SEALs were there to ensure the safe transfer of the documents for declassification and archiving. Sergeant Lawson felt a sense of relief, the mystery finally unfolding. He nodded, understanding the importance of the task Walt had been entrusted with. The officers had acted with duty and respect, and now their role in the story was clear. Walt was released from the holding cell, his calm demeanor unchanged. He was surrounded by the SEALs, their presence a testament to his significance. The officers watched as Walt and Commander Mason exchanged a few quiet words, a connection born of shared history. The SEALs prepared to escort Walt back to the naval base. The officers stood by, observing the scene with a newfound respect for the veteran. Walt's story was no longer a mystery, but a testament to duty and honor. The officers felt privileged to have played a part, however small, in the unfolding events. As the convoy prepared to depart, Sergeant Lawson approached Walt. He wanted to offer a personal apology for the detainment, to express his admiration for the veteran's service. Walt listened, his expression thoughtful. He nodded, accepting the sergeant's words with grace. There was an understanding between them, a shared recognition of the night's significance. The officers watched as the convoy drove away, the vehicles disappearing into the night. The station gradually returned to its routine, the tension easing as the reality of the evening settled in. The story of Walt's detainment and the SEAL's arrival would be shared among the officers, a tale of respect and duty. Back at his home, Walt resumed his quiet life. The burden of the secret had been lifted, the mission complete. He received a letter of commendation from the Navy acknowledging his service and the integrity with which he had upheld his duty. The letter became a symbol of the mission and the promise he had kept, a connection to a past that had shaped his life. In the days that followed, Ridgewood returned to its usual pace. The townspeople, though unaware of the full story, sensed a change. Walt was regarded with newfound respect and understanding of his quiet strength. His story became part of the town's history, shared with reverence and pride. The officers at the station continued their duties, each carrying a piece of the night's events with them. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a reminder of the quiet heroes who walk among us. Walt's presence, though now returned to the background, remained a source of inspiration. For Walt, life continued in its familiar rhythm. He tended his garden and read on his porch, the weight of the past now a memory. His story was not one of recognition or reward, but of fulfilling a promise made long ago. The night at the station had been a culmination of years of quiet dedication, a testament to the power of duty and honor. And as the days turned into weeks, the people of Ridgewood carried Walt's story with them. It became a part of their lives, a reminder of the quiet man who had been part of something significant. For Walt, the peace that came with the end of his mission was enough. He lived each day with a sense of fulfillment, knowing he had done his part. In Ridgewood, life returned to its quiet pace after the eventful night at the police station. The rain had cleared, leaving the air fresh and the streets washed clean. Walt Hargrove resumed his life on the outskirts of town, where he found comfort in the familiar routine of his days. The people of Ridgewood continued with their lives, but the story of Walt's unexpected detainment had become a local legend. It was shared in hushed tones in the coffee shop, discussed with curiosity at the grocery store, and mentioned with respect during town gatherings. The tale of the Navy SEALs arriving to escort the quiet veteran was told with a sense of awe, a reminder of the extraordinary lurking beneath the ordinary. Back at the police station, Sergeant Lawson and Officer Bailey carried on with their duties. The station had returned to its routine, but the memory of that night lingered. The officers now held a deeper respect for the tasks they performed, aware that sometimes the most routine duties could lead to unexpected significance. Sergeant Lawson, in particular, found himself reflecting on his conversation with Walt. The veteran's calm acceptance and quiet strength had left an impression on him. Lawson realized that the experience had taught him a lesson about the quiet dignity of service and the weight of responsibility. He shared these thoughts with his team, encouraging them to remember the importance of respect and understanding. Walt, meanwhile, enjoyed the quiet solitude of his home. The letter of commendation from the Navy sat framed on his mantel next to an old photograph of his naval team. It was a reminder of the past, of the mission that had defined so much of his life. The burden of secrecy had been lifted, and with it came a sense of peace. In the garden, Walt tended to his plants, finding solace in the simple act of nurturing life. His hands, though aged, moved with care and precision. Each day, he spent time reading on his porch, the books offering a window to worlds beyond his own. He found joy in the quiet moments, in the routines that had been a part of his life for so long. The townspeople, aware of Walt's history, treated him with a newfound respect. They understood that he had been part of something significant, something that had required sacrifice and dedication. Walt did not seek recognition, but he appreciated the quiet nods and warm smiles from his neighbors. One afternoon, as Walt sat on his porch, he received a visitor. It was Officer Bailey, who had come to check on him. The young officer greeted Walt with a respectful nod, a gesture that spoke of the admiration he held for the veteran. Walt invited him to sit, offering a chair beside him. Officer Bailey thanked Walt for allowing him to visit. He expressed his gratitude for the lessons learned from the experience, for the reminder of the importance of duty and honor. Walt listened, his expression thoughtful. He appreciated the young officer's sincerity, recognizing the potential for growth and understanding. As they sat together, the conversation turned to simpler topics. They spoke of the weather, the changing seasons, and the quiet beauty of Ridgewood. It was a moment of connection, a bridge between generations. Walt shared stories of his past, tales of his time in the Navy, and the experiences that had shaped him. Officer Bailey listened with interest, absorbing the wisdom in Walt's words. He felt a sense of privilege, aware that he was hearing stories that few others knew. The visit was a reminder of the bonds that could form between people, the connections that could be forged through shared experiences. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the garden, Officer Bailey stood to leave. He thanked Walt once more, expressing his hope to visit again. Walt nodded, offering a handshake that conveyed mutual respect. The young officer departed, carrying with him the lessons of the day. In the days that followed, Walt continued with his quiet life, content with the world he had built for himself. The town of Ridgewood moved forward, its people going about their lives with a sense of community and connection. Walt's story remained a part of the town's fabric, a testament to the power of service and the strength of character. Walt's life, though marked by extraordinary events, was one of quiet fulfillment. He had kept his promise, fulfilled his duty, and found peace in the simplicity of his days. The burdens of the past had been lifted, replaced by the comfort of a life well lived. As the seasons changed, bringing new colors to the landscape, Walt continued to find joy in his garden and his books. He remained a quiet presence in Ridgewood, a man who had carried a significant burden with grace. His story, shared with reverence, became a part of the town's history, a reminder of the quiet heroes among us. And so Walt Hargrove lived his days with dignity and peace, knowing he had done his part. His life was a testament to the power of promises kept, of duties fulfilled, and of the quiet strength that comes from a life lived with honor. If you loved the story, like this video.